Many years ago, I walked through some orchards, past a shepherd, across a highway, to my new school in a small town in Germany. My German was shaky, and I was shy and quiet, and in every way, the new kid. I hoped for the best, but not unexpectedly, unfortunately, more than one of the local kids bullied me at break time. Less expected was that the teachers would also bully me. But I knew this might happen. I had been through it before. I had been the new kid many times as we traveled from town to town and school to school. And each time, my mother had the same advice for me. She said, "What these kids and teachers say or do can't touch you. You are the same person, the same great kid, regardless of what anyone says or does. You are the same good, intelligent, creative self. And if you can also find your loving self and find something in your classmates and teachers to like, then their good self will come forward and come back at you." So I went back to school the next day and the next. I spent hours drawing, but also hours watching my classmates and teachers to find something beautiful or good in each of them. And when I had the opportunity, I gave the kid who had pushed and kicked me a compliment about his singing, and the kid who had covered me in itching powder a smile when he made a joke. And things turned around. I saw that it wasn't personal. They were reacting to the newness of my face and my strange foreign manners. And when they felt safe with me, because I saw something good in them, they reacted differently to me. Soon I would have a few friends to walk home with. It was a little more difficult with the teachers, who kept kicking me out of the classroom, usually due to a language-related misunderstanding. But my mother explained to me that the teachers' anger was because a foreign kid made their job that much harder, and not to take it personally. Soon my teachers came around as well. I remember many an afternoon sitting at home in floods of tears with my mother after school and her comforting me. But I also remember that my struggles did not impress her much. And there's good reason for that. She herself was once the new kid from another place and had been treated as unworthy. In 1945, my mother and her family were sitting at home one evening. The snow outside was falling thick and fast. My mother's father was not there because he had already been taken to a work camp. So my mother and her sister and her mother were alone. That evening, they heard gunshots coming closer and closer to the home and knew that the invading armies were near. And in that instant, my 7-year-old mother and her family became refugees. My mother was bundled in a basket and placed on a sled. They put a feather pillow on top of her and took only a few things with them that they could carry and walked away from their home forever, pulling my mother behind them in the falling snow. They walked and walked, sleeping in ditches or barns or railway carriages or wherever they could find shelter at night. Sometimes they found food along the way, mainly thanks to my mom being such a little person and a reluctant but nonetheless effective beggar. So, unlike many of the hundreds of thousands along the road, my family did not starve. Eventually, they found shelter and a farm willing to give them a room in exchange for their labor. This one room gave my mother the chance to again go to school. But by then, she was very far behind her classmates and could not even read. But like me, she found the goodness around her and did eventually catch up and make a friend or two. My mother told me many stories of her childhood as a refugee. And though on the face of it, there were stories of misfortune and great hardship and separation, she mainly told stories of the goodness of strangers who offered a warm meal or a toy bear at Christmas, and eventually an illegal escape to freedom. My mother taught me to see the good in myself and how it couldn't be touched, and see the goodness in others and in situation. I am no longer the shy kid who spent most of her time in her room drawing. I am now a grown-up who loves to bring people together. But that shy kid is still in me. I am still an outsider at heart. And this has also helped me. I have now, after living and working in 12 different cities, I've settled here in London. Did you know that 60 languages are spoken at my kids' local school? I love this town and its mix of people, and feel like this is where I now belong. I was speaking recently with my friend Obi, who is also a tech CEO. He was born to Nigerian parents and actually grew up right here in Notting Hill, and the two of us were talking and thinking about how grateful we are for the incredible diversity here in our London teams, and also for the outsider's perspective that we each bring to leadership. There are two sides to this story of insiders and outsiders. For the insider, I see the responsibility to hire in and welcome newcomers and make them feel safe and heard, and seen for their goodness. For me, this means going beyond the traditional tough CEO persona and sharing my artwork or my occasional bout of hypochondria or my funny passion for trees and frogs and other wee beasties of the earth. I want people to know me as I am, so that they can feel free to also be themselves. For the outsiders, I see the responsibility to find the goodness in individuals in the insider group, to form connections and work together. So, the loving self that sees the good sits on both sides of the fence, to form connections and come together and weather any storm. One of the things that's very stressful as a CEO is making sure that there is always enough money coming in to pay employee salaries. I remember one day many years ago coming into work and finding out that overnight Google had turned off our advertising revenue. And in an instant, half of our money stopped flowing in. Just thinking about it now makes my hands a bit sweaty. So my first reaction was fear. I had looked up online and had seen that most companies in this situation had gone under. My next reaction was anger. I saw Google as a huge bully. How could they, in one click, without any warning, trigger the end of our company? But I had been through it before, and I turned to my formula. I saw myself as good. I could not be touched, even by a tech Goliath. This gave me the courage to resist the temptation to see Google and all of its employees as baddies. I made a list of all the Google people that I liked and respected, and I spent the next 3 days reaching out to them and letting them know that I saw them as good people, doing the best that they could, and that I was very willing to work with them to find a solution. It worked. On the 4th day, they turned our account back on against their own rules. Our money started flowing back in. We were safe. You know, the great thing about working in technology is that there is always a new and exciting problem to work on. And each time, I first see the good in myself and then see the good in others so that we can come together and innovate and weather any storm. Another thing a tech CEO has to do is raise money. I've raised millions in my career, but one time in particular stands out. I was 6 months pregnant with my second child. And now, the world of money is, well, the dominant culture in the world of money is male. And as a female CEO, I sometimes feel the odd one out. And with my pregnant belly, I didn't feel like I would just slip in. But I stopped this idea in its tracks. And I turned to my formula, and I said, I am good, great even. And I then turned immediately to thinking, I cannot even be touched by any external reaction, any reaction to my external form. And then I went to look for something that I liked that was good in each of the 50 gentlemen and 1 woman that I went to go talk to. This really helped. I closed the round in record time and made some friends along the way. Now, before I leave you all thinking that I see the world through rosy-tinted glasses of goodness and love, I want to acknowledge that there are times when this playbook has its limits. There have been a handful of times where I've come across an individual who clashes too much with my core value of inclusivity. And in those cases, I say next and walk away to greener pastures. And there may be others of you who think that my approach is a little bit soft. Well, I see it differently. It takes enormous strength and discipline to resist the daily reaction to see yourself or someone else as bad or unworthy in some way. But if you can, you will get an enormous superpower. The power to see the other side of the argument and bring people together. The power to combat fear and even relax a little bit. The power to think for yourself independently. The power to separate the person from the problem. The power to listen to feedback and not fall apart. The power to see each individual as good or beautiful in some way, even if they themselves cannot see it. The power to live and love more fully. So this is why, though it may take me a lifetime to truly do these things consistently, I will stick to my mother's advice as best I can. I am glad I was the outsider child of a refugee. And so, I encourage all of you to see the good in yourself and how it cannot be touched, and to see the good in others, to form connections and come together, no matter who you are or where you're from.